Hey, hello, good people, good comics fan, good movies fan, good sci-fi fans. Wherever you are on this small but soothing planet Earth, I wish you well. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Fantastic Four movies, and since it's 2 weeks after the movie, roughly, I can't be giving any spoilers because it's been out for a number of days now. Now, as you just now saw from my intro, technically, I can speak on the Fantastic Four movies. I've been collecting Fantastic Four ongoingly since the Middle Ages. I believe I started collecting comic books in like in the late 70s. But you know, but my neighborhood, it was not a special comic book vendor, so they got books here and there, or they didn't have racks. You know, like sometimes you go to the book, a store like CVS, they have books on the shelves, like those shelf things. That's how it was with the comic book. So it was no rack of comics like like in the 80s. So technically, I can speak on a Fantastic Four movie because you see, I got some history with them. And I definitely started collecting them in the 80s when, let me say, the issue that I can remember is when Frankie Ray became the Herald of Galactus. I think that's when I became hooked to the Fantastic Four. So I know all about them. They basically comic books' first family. I'm sure the Justice League and the Avengers, the Justice Society, and the list goes on and on, were out before them. But those members in that group did not know each other before they had the powers. The Fantastic Four, they're the first family because before the movie, or before the comics, there was technically actual family. So I'm going to go over some things I like about the movie. Now, if you have any history of the Fantastic Four, you know the four members went up in space in a rocket. In the 60s, the only scientist there was Reed Richards and maybe Ben Grimm because he was a test pilot. In the 60s, Sue and Johnny, they were just passengers. Now, you know it's hard to believe in any era on any planet that two regular people can get on a spaceship. Even here in the United States with NASA, when they have regular people on there, they have to go through a severe screening process. Reed just, according to the comic book, they just joined Reed and Ben in a flight to space and zapped out their powers. The thing I like about this movie, now, it seemed like all of them had some scientific expertise. So, technically, they were qualified to go on a space mission. Now, they wasn't bona fide genius level intellects like Reed Richards, but they were skilled at some level of science. You know, and Ben, he was skilled in both science and being a pilot. That's what I like about it. These individuals, they was more grounded in reality. And the comic books, I don't even know if Sue even had a degree. Technically, Reed and Ben probably was the only one with degrees, because I know in the comic books, Johnny was a teenager and he used to like to ride hot rods. They don't have nothing to do for a rocket. But here, like I said, they all had some level of scientific knowledge, advanced level of scientific knowledge. And I was impressed by Johnny because he had a high degree of scientific knowledge because he was able to decipher Charlotte Bar's language and determine her name and what planet she came from. So, like I said, they had a high degree of level of scientific ability. And now, one thing that turned me up about the movie, since the Fantastic Four came out in the 1960s, you know in that era how they had to look. They had to be a certain way. One plus with the Superman movies, now they have Perry White as a different ethnic group. I wish the Fantastic Four movie would have, different ethnic groups. Especially with the Thing, hey, he could have been Asian, Latino, etc. Because, most of the time he was the Thing. He could have been some other ethnic group. Ben Grimm, Asian, Hispanic, American Indian, something. But they kept everybody the same way from the comic books, one ethnic group. And I know why. Because the first couple Fantastic Four movies, they was not met with a lot of acclaim. And I'm going to go for some reasons why it wasn't met with some acclaim. So I'll give you some reasons I like. They was all scientific and improved. They had some degree of scientific knowledge, all of them. All of them. And they was truly a family. Reed was married to Sue, like in the comic books. Johnny was Reed's brother-in-law, like in the comics. And Ben was Reed's childhood friend, but the movie didn't show that. But in the comics, they was childhood friend. And if Ben and Reed was alive today, they would use the term that's famous in my community. They would say, "You my brother from another mother." That's how tight they were. So those are the positives I like. It had a great display of their powers. Ben, I know he can lift way over the 100-ton range. He was able to drag that ship. Johnny, I like how he displayed his powers. You know, when he was flying over some buildings on fire. Like in the comic books, he has the ability to control fire. So he drew all the fire into himself and put out the fire. Sue, force fields was believable. They gave it some type of wavy light distortion effect. But you know, in real life, it was completely in the movie, you know, it was completely invisible. But you know, since it's Hollywood, you gotta give a little jazz to it. So they may have some sort of light shimmering effect where it looked like it was going through a prism. Yeah, it had that prism effect on it. They had good powers on it. The only person powers I did not like was Mr. Fantastic's powers. Now I know from what I heard on YouTube and I know about movies, they didn't want to show his abilities looking goofy. So basically in this movie, they just had him stretching his limbs. I hope in the other movies, you know, like at the end of the movie too, you know, like they had him stretching his face a little bit. You know, but that was at the end of the movie where his face got distorted. But in the movies, all they did was to show his powers was stretch his limb, stretch his arm, stretch his leg, and that was it. But they did show his powers in a fantastic way, how he was able to jump on different, you know, falling debris real quick. So it did show, hey, he got stretching powers, but stretching powers are powerful. But I just wish in the future, if they make additional movies, they can just show his powers in other fantastic ways, like sliding under a door, his whole body. That's not goofy looking. You can slide your body under a door. That's not goofy. Or using his finger to make a key, like the Fantastic in the movie in the 2000s. That's believable. You get into a house, but sliding under a door, finding some way to get into a vault, something like that. Or I watched a movie, but I guess it would have been too comical. It really made him half the size of Galactus. I know he can do that. He can increase his mass too and get bigger and fatter. I wish he would have did that. But even the weakness I did not like about him, when Galactus was stretching him, it's like his way popped. He only was stretched about 100 meters, and like his way popped. In a comic book, I definitely know you can stretch Mr. Fantastic for over 300 meters. That's roughly 900 feet from our fellow Americans. He's able to stretch really into the thousands of feet. Here, Galactus stretched him roughly 300 feet. He was screaming like a bee, ready to pop. I said, okay, see, that's not believable. Galactus should be able to stretch him to his full arm length, and nothing should have happened. He shouldn't have been screaming in pain or nothing. That was it. And also, with Galactus, in a movie, I know you only can show so much about cosmic level entity. He was a cosmic level entity, but he did show some of his cosmic powers when he was finding Franklin in space, where he knew his cognition abilities. He knew that Franklin was a massively powerful individual. Even though it didn't show up on Reed Richards' Earth-based test, Galactus knew from his cosmic awareness that Franklin was a universal power source. And when he came to Earth, he used his cosmic awareness to find Franklin in the buildings, and he discovered Franklin was a fake. So he used his cosmic awareness, but he really didn't use his cosmic powers the way he did in the comic books. Because, you know, technically, in the comic books, they couldn't stop Galactus at all. They couldn't stop him at all. Sue couldn't push him back. With his cosmic powers, he can say, I don't want to be pushed back. That would have been in it. But in the movies, you know, they got to make it believable, so our powers pushed him back. But the similarity from the comic books to the movies is that the Herald helped thwart Galactus. In the comic books, it was the Silver Surfer. In this movie, it was the female version of the Silver Surfer. And yeah, like I was saying, most people, they had a big scream and getting a hissy because Silver Surfer wasn't non-red. Come on, man. See, they gotta have an open mind. Come on. You know they was made in the 1960s, and you know what the complexion of America was like in the 1960s. So come on, man. If they make her to a female, so what? And she's still the same female from non-red universe. I just wish in the movie, when they show off a little girl, they could at least show non-red. They just showed the little girl and that's it. I said, come on, they at least could have showed non-red there in the movie. The father, I guess, and that planet, he probably could have been divorced. He could have been divorced because he was nowhere to be found. So, those are some of the things I like and dislike about the movie. And I also was impressed at the end of the movies. Okay, but I will give it this. When the Invisible Woman did stop the Galactus, she had to use all her might, all her strength. So it took her life. She technically died in the movies. She died completely. But frankly, that was a nice scene. With his cosmic level abilities, he still knew that was his mother. Even though he was a baby, he knew it was his mother. So he used his cosmic level power to bring his mother back to life. That was believable. So technically, and I did like the portrayal of the Thing in this movie. You know, in most movies, when you see the Thing, he always crying and whining like he's the Thing. I know Ben Grimm still wanted to be human again, but in this movie, he accepted his fate because the public loved him, and that's what I like too. They was the only well, I shouldn't say that because there was the other people in the movie like the Mole Man